Hello team and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS. This is Ukraine War News Update for the 18th of October 2023. Sorry this is a bit late today. I think my MS has woken up with me and kicked me in the butt, and it's very difficult to get moving today. And anyway, nonetheless, that is not your problem. Let us look at the Ukrainian General Staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before. All the usual caveats apply. You can find them in the description to this video. You can see that below. There are 6 helicopters added to this, and you may make the connection between the strike on the airbase in Berdyansk yesterday, one at Luhansk that we know very little about at the moment, but certainly the one at Berdyansk. There is information coming out about that, and we'll talk about that in the strikes section. So 6 helicopters added from that. 3 more could be damaged. I guess it's quite difficult for the Ukrainians to work out exactly what the battle damage assessment for that was, not being on the ground. You can look at satellite imagery, and we'll have a quick look at some of that in a second. So 620 personnel lost is down from the 800 we saw yesterday, which was down itself from sort of 1,000 odd that we saw at the height of the Avdiivka attacks, and actually Novomykhailivka as well. So I was listening to Andrew Perpetua's live stream last night. He was talking about the Avdiivka attack in some great detail. Well worth going to check that out. This is yesterday's map, by the way, so the pins aren't relevant for today. But yeah, he did a lot of talking about that attack, but also a lot of concentration on what took place at Novomykhailivka, which is here down to the south of Mariinka, and said that around here you've got 30 to 40 Russian armored vehicle losses there. So it's just a huge loss in both places, and he said this was arguably one of the main attack points, and there was vastly more shelling there than there was up around Avdiivka. So that anyway, that's by the by. 620 personnel, 2 tanks, so you can see that's a big old drop down to much smaller levels. 15 armored personnel vehicles, still a heavy day in that category for the Russians, and then 8 artillery systems, one of the lowest numbers we've seen for an awful long time. I don't know how long they can continue taking out apparently 30 to 40 pieces of artillery on a daily basis. They surely are going to get to a stage where the Russians are running short on that kind of equipment, but I don't know. We'll see. It's all, as we've talked about a gazillion times, all to do with the accuracy of these figures and the amount of stocks of equipment that the Russians have to draw from. 1 fixed-wing aircraft and 6 helicopters to add to their tally. That is a bad day at the office for the Russians there, obviously. That, I think, will include the 1 aircraft that was taken out that I reported on yesterday, as well as the strike on the airbase. I don't think the fixed-wing aircraft comes from the airbase strike. 10 drones and 1 cruise missile, and 10 vehicles and fuel tanks. So many categories are seeing a big drop from the very high numbers we had seen over the last week, but still 620 personnel, 6 helicopters and 1 aircraft is a really challenging day for the Russians. No Andrew Perpetua list today. He hasn't done that yet, or the timing. He had a live stream, so that's probably why that's not out. And he says more losses keep coming in from the 10th. We're up to 25 BMPs, so infantry fighting vehicles, 37 in a battalion, by the way, 14 APCs, 44 in a battalion, and 10 tanks, 31 in a battalion. It is, I don't know exactly what area that is pertaining to, but the idea is that when we were seeing these huge numbers on a daily basis for, at the height of the Avdiivka attack over the last week, those numbers seem to have been justified by the evidence to support. Right, this is a bit of footage, and as ever, I could show you umpteen bits of footage of stuff getting blown up, and so, kind of whatever. I also can't show you stuff getting blown up because I get demonetized, but here is a strike on 2 Russian BM-21 Grads. So these are multiple launch rocket systems. There are none listed today, but there have been every day previously. Now, why I found this footage interesting is because it's a case of it's the importance of drones, right? So you have a Grad firing off its load and then driving back to get stocked up with more missiles to reload. So it leaves its position, and it's being spotted the entire time. Drones are everywhere, and it appears that nothing is safe. So here we have the drone following that all the way back to where it's getting refilled with rockets, and there's the ammunition dump there, and then another grad comes and drives in that's just fired its load off somewhere else and parks next to it. Crew is reloading the ammunition, and then this calls in a strike. I'm not sure whether the strike is. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It's most probably precision guided munition from maybe an Excalibur or something, from a howitzer of one sort or another, rather than being a HIMARS strike. But it basically hits here. The ammunition blows up, and then there's a massive explosion later in the video, and you're losing an awful lot of equipment. You're losing trained troops, so on and so forth. This is a really really big loss. And how is it a big loss? Well, it's a drone that's able to spot, and then you see a catastrophic explosion that kind of gives you an indication of how it ended. Drones are so important, aren't they? I mean, we know that, but yeah. Now, this is a video from a Russian Ka-52 attack helicopter, which is launching an MLUR Izdali 305 missile into a building. The distance is 15 kilometers. On the left is a footage from the missile seeker, and right is from the HUD, from the display in the helicopter. Now, I'm not really going to show whatever, it's a missile being fired, but the importance here is it's a 15-kilometer range, and this is the importance of hitting that Berdyansk airport, right, airbase. Is that you are taking out 6 of these helicopters. These helicopters are able to fly out of range of MANPAD, so your man-portable air defense systems, your Stingers on a shoulder that have, say, a 5-kilometer range. Well, if you're at 15 kilometers, you are pretty safe and able to use your much longer range missiles that they are getting. They're getting increasingly longer range missiles on these attack helicopters. I don't think all of them have them at the moment, but they're becoming more and more prevalent. These need to be dealt with, these attack helicopters, and one of the best ways of dealing with them is taking them out at source. So hitting them with the ATACMS at Berdyansk Airport is super, super important. Now, we're going to spend a little time looking at the strike on Berdyansk in a wee while, so just bear with me a second. Right, in the Kharkiv region, and Andrew Perpetua talked about this on his live stream last night. Here's some footage, probably from one of the incidents he was talking about. So in Kharkiv region, a 52-year-old man died due to the explosion of an explosive object, in other words, a mine. Reports the state emergency service. A tractor exploded on unknown ammunition in a field. It might not have been a mine, but it seems fairly plausible. In the territory of the Izium district, the tractor driver died on the spot. At the same time, there's another person that lost a leg yesterday. Andrew was saying that this is happening to the tune of sort of one person a day is being lost to these kind of events, and that is massively challenging, especially when most of these people might be farmers, and Ukraine need farmers. They need soldiers, and they need farmers. This is the breadbasket of the world. It is one of the main ways that the Ukrainian economy can get consistent money in, if they can get over the issue of grain export, which they are trying so hard to do. And this makes everything so difficult. It's a real challenge, and it's going to be a challenge for decades, of course, isn't it? But I just thought I'd remind people of that, and that kind of event happens on an incredibly regular basis. Okay, going on to distance strikes. Before we get to the strike on Berdyansk, this was just coming through before I decided to do this video. So this is very recent. The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation announced that overnight Russian air defense systems shot down 28 Ukrainian drones. Explosions were reported in Yevpatoria, Belgorod, and Kursk regions. Okay, so that's not the interesting bit. this is the idea that lots of drones were sent across into Russia. You have Pretoria, Belgorod, and Kursk. So Belgorod and Kursk are in the north of Ukraine. You've got Belgorod here, and you've got Kursk there. These are where the Russian volunteers do their incursions. But we're going to be concentrating on Kursk and a camp near Kursk at a place called Postolay Dvory, right? So there's a Russian army camp here, somewhere here. I don't know exactly. These are old satellite images, so I don't know whether that has been built subsequent to these images. Right, so what has happened? At the moment, the answer is don't really know. But sources in the SBU report that last night Ukraine hit a Russian field camp in Postolay Dvory near Kursk airport. It is reported that up to 3,000 Russian soldiers and about 80 units of military equipment were stationed there. The damage is being clarified. So no damage yet. There is this imagery of explosions going off there. These will be drones. So Kursk region, Max 23 says, quoting the SBU, 18 drones hit a military camp near the airfield of Khalino. At night, the SBU launched an attack with drones. Up to 3,000 Russian soldiers and 80 units of equipment were stationed there. The exact number of casualties is currently being determined. Don't know. We'll see what comes out of that. Now, I was hoping, as I'm sure most pro-Ukrainians were, that we would see more ATACMs used. The problem is, I think they have only been given, and this is according to New York Times just coming out, they've only been given 20 ATACMs. So the USA sent about 20 ATACMs missiles to Ukraine. One of the conditions of provision is not to use them for attacks on the territory of Russia. New York Times writes about this with reference to Western officials. And the idea was they wanted to keep it quiet and small enough because they were really worried that the delivery would be targeted by the Russians, because it's such a high value delivery. So there's only 20 of them. Now, whether that means that that's all they're going to get, or whether they get a load more in subsequent deliveries, I can't say at all. I haven't read that New York Times article yet, unfortunately. But that is a shame. What I would have preferred, and this is what John Ridge was saying last night on the live, or one of them, or a chap called CJ that helps him at the Andrew Perpetua live stream, is that it would have been better for Ukraine to have received 200 of these and no one knew about them, and then suddenly they could just use them night after night after night, and it wouldn't give the Russians the chance to move their equipment. Now, this is pretty obvious. Unfortunately, it's not what's going to happen. So you had this really high value strike on Berdyansk, and we had another one on an airbase in Luhansk. There's a couple of options for where that might have been, but no evidence coming out of that yet. And that subsequently, the Russians are, one presumes, able to move things out from high value target areas. So whether that be airframes from Jankoy area, helicopters from there, or from anywhere else, I don't know. The Russians will surely be in panic mode and get moving stuff right back. Now, that will have the desired effect in terms of effect on logistics, but of course, really, the best way to affect logistics is to take out the targets entirely from the start. So, okay, they can move helicopters back into Russian territory, and it means that actually they have to do refueling stops, and then they won't be able to have as much flight time to do whatever offensive or defensive actions they're doing. Okay, so that's annoying, but it's better if they didn't exist at all, right? So it's a real opportunity lost, in my opinion, although it's great that they've got ATACMs, and hopefully they'll get more. It just, I wish they could have kept it quiet, and then just their presence in Ukraine is announced by lots of explosions like this. So these are the helicopters in Berdyansk, some on fire. It's interesting listening to Dom Nichols from Ukraine the Latest podcast saying that helicopters are not very good at getting damaged. Right, I loved the way he put it. It was like, airplanes, like fixed wing airplanes, just want to stay in the air. They're designed that they can glide. If you take out an engine or whatever, they can still glide and hopefully get you to the ground or whatever. And then worst case scenario, you can eject. But they're kind of designed to be up in the air. Helicopters are not designed to be in the air. They have to work really hard to fight against physics to be in the air. And you do anything to mess that up and they just fall to the ground. And so they're not very good at operating with holes in them. They're not very good at having bits and pieces getting damaged. So any kind of shrapnel from submunitions flying around here is going to cause quite a bit of problem for these helicopters because they don't like damage. So I thought that was an interesting observation. This is the first satellite imagery coming out from Berdyansk Air Base that seems to indicate that 6 helicopters might well have been taken out, and there's evidence of burns, explosions, flames, whatever, at those six points. There are also some other sort of burns going on as well. So I don't know if they know that that's not a helicopter. I presume someone can verify that better than I can looking at these. But you can see down here, all these helicopters were not affected. So that's a real opportunity missed. Like I said yesterday, it would have been nice to have then sent another couple of ATACMS in right afterwards, because you can rest assured that those helicopters, well, you'd assume they would have been moved by now to somewhere else. And the evidence of these being, there's lots of evidence, but also that everyone's admitted it. So the evidence of these being ATACMS, these were found at Berdyansk, and then these. So there are 2 different blocks of ATACMS. These suggest block 1, but actually someone was saying yesterday that even the code here suggests it's 140A, but it might be 140A1, and the coding could be not representative of what it is due to some upgrades and so on and so forth. So it's either one type or another type, but essentially it's the cluster munition variant of the ATACMS. Then Zelensky confirmed it last night, so in case anyone had any doubt, my special gratitude today goes to the US. Our agreements with President Biden are being fulfilled. They are being fulfilled very accurately. ATACMS have proven themselves, he said. And then, of course, we had the idea that the White House admitted they'd sent ATACMS, and they were in part of a shipment under the heading of cluster munitions to try and, because there is still a paperwork trail for all of this stuff, but I guess technically a cluster munition, and they've tried to smuggle these under the title of generic DPICM or something, cluster munition. So that was an admission from the US and from the Ukrainians themselves. Very much for Ivan for the tea delivery. Excellent. And going to other distant strikes here, this is from last night. Anton Gerashchenko said Russian missile strike on Zaporizhia last night. I think they sent 6 S-300 missiles. These are surface-to-air missile systems that can shoot their missiles in a ground attack mode, and they are less accurate. And Zaporizhia is one of those places that gets routinely hammered by these missiles. So Zaporizhia gets hammered by them, Dnipro gets hammered by them, and we often see lots of activity around here on the north of the reservoir as well, but that's usually by shelling. Kryvyi Rih takes some of these too. So yeah, this is not unusual. The annoying thing is for civilians and human beings, right, is that these end up often hitting civilian targets. I mean, the question is whether they were targeting civilians or whether it's the inaccuracy of these, but they don't really care about the inaccuracy, so on and so forth. The discussion we've had plenty of times. At least 2 people died, 3 injured, 50 people evacuated. Rescue works continue as a residential building was hit. And indeed, I think there's more. Here we go. A little bit out of order. So on the night of October the 18th, Russia hit the center of Zaporizhia with their S-300 missiles and hit a high-rise building. Unfortunately, it is already known about 2 dead and 3 wounded. In addition, a man was saved who was already handed over to the medics. That is, not a good look in Zaporizhia. We have 3 powerful explosions being reported in occupied Tokmak. That is, well, who knows? I mean, now with I don't think you'd use ATACMS to hit something so close as Tokmak, but there's Tokmak in case you'd forgotten. That is where the Ukrainians really would like to get to in their counteroffensive, but it's looking increasingly unlikely, but it just might be a slow grind to there. So 3 explosions there. We've unconfirmed reports of explosions in occupied Crimea overnight. Local media reports the sound of several blasts in Yevpatoria. So this is where there were drones reported, and a village called Romeshkino, where Russia likely has an air defense system stationed. Also, Cotton reported, so that's explosion clouds of as a result of explosion reported near Sevastopol, and explosions heard in Crimea last night, according to local chats in the area of the S-400 that was attacked last September. So it might be that they still have air defense systems positioned near or at where they previously were, and we have strikes in the same place, it appears, as those air defense systems were previously. So we'll wait, I guess, to see what the results of those were. And just in case I've got that in the wrong place, goodness me, I'm not doing very well today, am I? This is supposedly evidence of, and this was released by Zelensky aid, evidence of the ATACMS being fired. Now you can see 3 were fired there. As far as I understand it, on that night, so 2 nights ago, 5 were fired, and that might well be 3 at Berdyansk and 2 at Luhansk, or it could be the other way around. As you can see, that's 5 out of 20. That's a quarter of their ATACMS stocks in that one night. So I guess they are using them sparingly. My opinion would be use them straight away. Just don't give the Russians a chance to react. Expend all 20 in the first night, I would have done, but then hey, what do I know? Right, that is all as far as strikes go. We'll move on to other bits and pieces. UK intelligence points to a marked uptick in Russian military actions, focusing on the Kupiansk-Liman axis in the northeast, featuring increased artillery and strategic army ops. It's highly unlikely Russia will achieve a major operational breakthrough. So this is kind of going towards what Yevlash, the spokesperson for the Eastern Forces, was saying, and I've been reporting him saying this for some time, which is there are 100,000 troops in the Luhansk area. They're getting ready to do something, we should be on our toes. There's been activity around the Kupiansk area, although interestingly, the Ukrainians have pushed back the Russians north of Sinkivka here, so in this forest area. That's something that I'll be updating on the map a bit later. But there is still activity in a number of these places around Novoherivka area and all the way down to the forest and whatnot. So that is UK intelligence saying that, yeah, there is an uptick in activity around here, unlikely to be able to get through to Oskil River as they would no doubt be intending, but could be an area to look out for with a potential big flare up there. The other thing I'm just adding to this bit here, it's kind of frontline stuff, but nonetheless, very interesting. The Russians are banging on about a naval operation by Ukrainian forces to establish another bridgehead on the left bank of the Dnipro. They're in a bit of a panic, and really, even though they're trying to cope, you can see it in their commentary. Well, what the claim is, and this has come from Rebar as well, that there were assault groups going over near the Antonivsky Bridge, and they've taken apparently control of a village in the area, and lots of people kind of reacting to that, so on and so forth. As I say, we'll look at that a little bit later. There are lots of sources to dip into on both sides, but just to let you know where that is, that's the Antonivsky Bridge, where the Ukrainians have had a foothold for an awful long time, and I believe they have taken this village here, if I am correct, although it's not really turning up. It's on my map. It's not rendering, but that's as far as I understand it. No, sorry, I was being dense. It is not here that they've moved towards. It is this place, Poima, that they have supposedly taken control of. So it's another bridgehead just to the east there. So this is the Antonivsky bridgehead that the Ukrainians had. Now, if what they say is true, then they've done something like that. But Andrew Perpetua, just to refer to him again, says, don't just repeat everything unquestioningly. You need to be skeptical. There's no evidence to suggest yet that a large-scale offensive is taking place or that they've succeeded in doing this, etc., etc. It might well be true, but there's no evidence yet. Let's just hold off a bit. And this is really important because, in fact, I'm going to talk about it now. Although this is the Israel-Palestine thing going on, it's just worth taking. It's a cautionary tale, essentially. Now, I could be wrong here, but the way I understand it is there was a strike last night on a hospital that supposedly killed 500 people. And loads of people jumped on this and said, this is terrible. The Hamas were claiming that the strike was from Israel. And the missiles came in. There's all big explosion. There was an explosion you can see in some video footage. The claim was 500 people died. And then this got picked up by news outlets who kind of unquestioningly repeated this. And then the Israeli Defense Force said, no, that's not what happened. And we have evidence that it didn't happen. And we've got some recordings that we can show you of an intercept, blah, blah, blah. But the damage is done. This is out in the information space, and then it's actually going crazy. And people were, if this was disinformation from Hamas, it achieved exactly what it was intended to achieve, which is everyone going absolutely nuts at Israel. And then today, the imagery has come out of this strike where supposedly 500 people have died and a hospital has been hit, and it looks like it's a car park in front of the hospital, which is, terrible. This is bad. Like, there's a civilian area, it's next to a hospital, and something is exploded. The Israelis are saying it was actually a misfiring rocket, and they provide a whole bunch of evidence to support that. And the other side claiming it's not, and provided a whole bunch of evidence to support their claims. And I think this is the cautionary tale to say, hang on, guys, just wait a second. Until we've got all the information, and once we've got a good probabilistic evaluation of what's happened, then we can pile in and see what we think about that. But right now is probably not the best time to do that, just when it's coming out on social media. Nathan Roos has done probably the best analysis I've seen. He said, look, I'm no expert, but this is how I see it. And he's analysed all of the details, and then looked at looked at when JDAMs have been used, because the accusation was that Israel were using JDAMs. JDAMs leave big craters, blah blah blah. And here are examples when JDAMs have been used. Here are other examples when that many people have died in other situations, and doesn't look like a car lot. I mean, this is when 360 people died. This is when, so on and so forth. These horrific previous examples of terrible deaths, numbers of deaths. He's saying, look, 500 people in what looks like a car park, is really unlikely. Anyway, irrespective of what the actual outcome of that event was, and as you can see, the analysis is really far. He's done a massive bit of analysis there. Irrespective of what the outcome is, all I want to do is link it to this, which is just, the Ukrainians have attacked here. Okay, they may have attacked. They may have taken that village. We'll wait and see. Rebar is saying this, and people are saying that. But in any kind of claim that is thrown out on this, particularly social media, but you can see that this has been repeated. So the Israeli-Palestine claim, the hospital claim, has been repeated by mainstream media. It's really easy to get carried away, and just be careful. And that is as much me talking to myself as it is talking to you guys. Like, I'm not so much advising you as reminding myself to check my own claims. Okay. Indeed, UK Foreign Secretary James Cleverly has come out and said last night too many jumped to conclusions around the tragic loss of life at Al Ahil Hospital. Getting this wrong would have put even more lives at risk. Yeah. So there you go. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. Really appreciate all your support. I've just been so busy this week. I've not had time to be able to properly thank people who have been continually supporting. I really do appreciate you all, and thank you for building this lovely community. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon. If I can find my stop button.